The courtroom stretched beyond what human eyes could comfortably see. Crystalline walls rose like frozen waterfalls toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. David Cole had been standing in the center of this alien amphitheater for 6 hours, his hands bound with energy shackles that hummed with an uncomfortable warmth. Around him sat representatives from 47 different species, each more bizarre than the last. The primans dominated the highest tier, their crystal bodies catching and reflecting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Below them, the slug-like Thurians oozed approval at every anti-human statement. The reptilian Deltans hissed their agreement, their forked tongues tasting the air as if they could smell victory. Cole had come to this galaxy as Earth's ambassador of peace. 3 years ago, when humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, they had sent out messages of friendship to every corner of known space. The response had been overwhelming. Dozens of species welcomed them, invited them to join the Galactic Council, promised them a place among the stars. It had all been a lie. The Priman Judge, a towering creature of living diamond, spoke in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. The accused will hear the final testimony. A small, furry creature that looked almost like a earth rabbit stepped forward. Cole recognized it as a representative from the peaceful Mirian colonies. Even they had turned against humanity. The humans, the Mirians squeaked, have built over 300 warships in just 2 years. They establish military bases on every world they colonize. They refuse to limit their population growth or territorial expansion. This aggressive behavior threatens the stability our galaxy has maintained for thousands of years. Cole wanted to laugh, but the sound would have come out broken. 300 warships to defend humanity's 12 colonies and Earth itself. The Priman Empire alone had over 50,000 ships in their fleet. The Deltans considered 1,000 warships to be a small patrol group. But when humans built defenses, it was called aggression. The humans also, continued the Mirian, showed disturbing psychological profiles. They form emotional attachments to their leaders that border on worship. They display violent tendencies when their social groups are threatened. They have a concept called revenge that is unknown to civilized species. More lies built on fear. Humans formed emotional bonds because they cared about each other. They defended their families and friends because love meant something to them. Apparently, in this galaxy, such feelings were considered dangerous. The Priman Judge's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. David Cole of the species known as human, you have been found guilty of crimes against galactic harmony. Your species has been deemed a threat to peaceful coexistence. The sentence is death by neural dissolution, to be carried out immediately, and broadcast to all worlds as a warning. Cole finally spoke, his voice carrying clearly across the vast chamber. You're making a mistake. The judge's crystalline features shifted in what might have been amusement. The human threatens us even now. This proves our judgment is correct. I'm not threatening you, Cole said calmly. I'm warning you. You think you understand human nature because you've watched us for 3 years. You see our ships and call U.S. warlike, you see our bonds and call us unstable. You see our growth and call us aggressive. But you don't understand what you're really looking at. A Thurian diplomat made a disgusting bubbling sound that passed for laughter. The primitive species lectures its betters. Cole ignored the insult. Every human ship out there, every colony, every settlement, they're all connected to each other in ways you can't comprehend. We don't just live together. We care about each other. When you kill one of us, especially one who came here in peace, you hurt all of us. Emotional instability, hissed a Deltan representative. This proves they are unfit for galactic society. You want to see human nature? Cole continued, his voice growing stronger. You want to judge us based on fear of what we might become. Fine, but understand this. Right now, 13 billion humans think of me as their voice in the stars. I came here carrying their hopes for friendship, for peace, for a future where our children could walk among the stars as equals. The Priman Judge raised one crystal hand. Enough, the sentence will be carried out. Cole smiled, and somehow that expression was more unsettling than any threat could have been. You're about to show 13 billion humans that the galaxy doesn't want peace. You're going to prove that friendship is weakness and trust is stupidity. You're going to teach them that the only way to survive out here is to be stronger, faster, and more ruthless than everyone else. The energy field around Cole began to intensify, preparing for the neural dissolution process. But he kept talking, his voice somehow carrying over the increasing hum of alien technology. We came here as explorers. We wanted to learn from you, to share what we know, to find our place among the stars as friends and partners. But you've decided to turn us into something else. You're about to create the very monster you claim to fear. The neural dissolution beam struck him then, a lance of pure energy that should have killed him instantly. But Cole had one last trick, a small transmitter hidden in his tooth, broadcasting on frequencies the aliens had never bothered to monitor. His final words reached every human ship, every colony, every listening post across known space. Remember. Yes, make them remember us. The beam completed its work, and David Cole, Earth's first ambassador to the stars, died in alien custody while billions watched. The Prime and Judge announced that justice had been served, that the galaxy was safe from human aggression. In the audience, representatives from dozens of species nodded their approval. They had eliminated a threat before it could grow dangerous. They had shown the upstart humans their place in the cosmic order. They had preserved the peace that had lasted for millennia. What they had actually done was sign their own death warrant on Earth. Admiral Rebecca Stone received Cole's final transmission in her office at Terran Command. She played it 3 times before her hands stopped shaking. Then she activated the emergency broadcast system and sent a single message to every human settlement, every ship, every station in known space. Condition read, total war authorization. All civilians report to military recruitment centers. All ships return to base for immediate combat refit. All research projects are now classified military assets. By order of the Emergency War Council, the Terran Defense Force is now the Terran War Machine. The response was immediate and unanimous. 13 billion humans had just watched their peaceful ambassador murdered for the crime of existing. They had seen their hopes for friendship crushed under alien fear and prejudice. They had learned that the galaxy considered them monsters simply for being human. Fine. If the galaxy wanted monsters, humanity would show them what real monsters looked like. The age of human exploration was over. The age of human conquest was about to begin. The alarm echoed through the corridors of Luna Base like a dying scream. Dr. Alex Ryder dropped the alien tissue sample he had been examining and rushed to the nearest communication terminal. The emergency broadcast was already playing, Admiral. Stone's voice cutting through the chaos with military precision. All personnel, civilian and military, report to designated stations immediately. We are now at war with the Galactic Council. This is not a drill. Alex stared at the screen, watching the footage of David Cole's execution play over and over. The man who had shaken his hand just 6 months ago, who had promised to bring back wonders from the stars, was now nothing more than scattered atoms. In an alien courtroom, the laboratory door burst open. Dr. Sarah Chun, his research partner, stumbled in with tears streaming down her face. Did you see it? Did you see what they did to him? Alex nodded, unable to speak. Around them, the xenobiology lab that had been dedicated to understanding alien life forms suddenly felt different. The carefully preserved samples from dozens of species, the detailed anatomical charts, the molecular analyses they had conducted in the name of scientific cooperation, all of it took on a darker purpose. Sarah, Alex said quietly, everything we've learned about alien biology, all of it. We need to turn it into weapons. She wiped her eyes and looked at him with a hardness he had never seen before. I was thinking the same thing. Across human space, similar conversations were happening in laboratories, factories, and military installations. The peaceful research that had been conducted over the past 3 years, The cultural exchanges, the scientific cooperation, all of it was being weaponized with frightening efficiency on Mars. The massive shipyards that had been building exploration vessels switched to military production without missing a beat. The civilian ships already under construction were stripped down and refitted with armor plating and weapon systems. Factory workers who had been building communication arrays started assembling missile guidance systems instead. Admiral Stone sat in her new office at the heart of what had once been the Department of Interstellar Relations. The nameplate on her desk now reads Supreme Commander Terran War Machine. Around her, civilian bureaucrats were being replaced by military personnel with ruthless efficiency. Status report, she demanded from the assembled officers. Colonel Mike Foster stepped forward. Ma'am, we have 600 ships of various classes ready for immediate deployment. Another 800 will be combat ready within 60 days. Recruitment centers are reporting over 50 million volunteers in the first 12 hours. What about intelligence? Commander Lisa Torres, head of what was now being called the Shadow Division, opened a classified folder. We have complete psychological profiles on 47 alien species thanks to the cultural exchange programs. We know their fears, their weaknesses, their social structures. We also have detailed star charts of their home systems, military installations, and trade routes. Stone nodded grimly. The bastards invited us in, showed us everything, and then tried to eliminate us. Their mistake. Dr. Ryder's voice crackled over the intercom. Admiral, we have something you need to see immediately. Minutes later, Stone stood in the xenobiology lab, staring at a holographic display that showed the molecular structure of primate crystal biology. Explain it to me, Doctor. Their entire civilization is based on crystalline matrices, Alex said, his voice filled with barely contained excitement. They're not really individuals like we are. They're more like extensions of a larger crystal network. If we can disrupt that network with the right harmonic frequency, we can kill millions of them simultaneously. Sarah stepped forward with another display. The Deltans have a completely different weakness. Their scales are designed to protect against energy weapons, but they're vulnerable to specific metal alloys. We can create bullets that will punch through their armor like paper. And the Therians? Stone asked. Their slime coating protects them from most environmental hazards, Alex replied, but it's also how they breathe. Introduce the right chemical compound into their atmosphere, and they'll suffocate in their own protective mucus. Stone felt something cold and hard settle in her stomach. 3 years ago, she had been a patrol admiral, protecting human shipping lanes from pirates and asteroids. Now she was planning the systematic extermination of entire species. The transformation should have horrified her. Instead, she found it oddly liberating. How long before these weapons can be mass-produced? 6 weeks for the harmonic disruptors, Sarah said. The chemical weapons can be ready in 3 weeks. The armor-piercing rounds can start production tomorrow. Do it, all of it. Stone turned to Torres. I want intelligence on every alien military. Installation within 50 light-years of human space. Troop numbers, defensive capabilities, communication networks, everything. Already working on it, Admiral. My people have been infiltrating alien networks since the execution was broadcast. Amazing how much security they ignore when they think you're primitive. Foster cleared his throat. Ma'am, there is one concern. The Geneva Convention, the Mars Accords, all of our treaties regarding warfare. These weapons you're describing, they violate every agreement we've signed about humane combat. Stone looked at him with eyes that had become as cold as deep space. Colonel, those treaties were signed between human nations who understood concepts like mercy and restraint. The aliens just prove they understand neither. As of today, humanity follows only one rule. We win, they lose, and we don't care how. Ugly it gets. She activated the main communication system. Attention all Terran forces. By now, you've all seen what the galaxy thinks of human diplomacy. They invited our ambassador to speak for peace, then murdered him for being human. They call us aggressive while they commit the ultimate act of aggression. They call us monsters while they broadcast executions for entertainment. Her voice carried to every human settlement, every ship, every station. They want to see human nature? We'll show them. We'll show them what happens when you corner a species that has conquered its own world through 2 million years of evolution. We'll show them what happens when you threaten the family of creatures who domesticated wolves and tamed fire. In the depths of space, human ships began moving with purpose for the first time since Cole's death. The exploration vessels were gone, replaced by hunters. The research stations became intelligence-gathering posts. The trade routes became supply lines for war. The Shadow Division launched their first mission, 72 hours after the declaration of war. A small fleet of Furian cargo ships simply vanished while traveling between their core worlds. No distress signals, no wreckage, no witnesses. They were simply there one moment and gone the next. Similar disappearances started happening across the galaxy. Alien ships would drop out of hyperspace for routine maintenance and never reach their destinations. Communication relays would go silent without explanation. Mining stations would stop responding to calls. The aliens began to whisper about ghost ships and phantom attacks. They spoke of shadows that moved between the stars, of humans who could appear and disappear like nightmares. Fear began to spread through the galactic community, a fear they had never experienced in thousands of years of peaceful expansion. But the real terror hadn't even begun yet. In her private quarters, Admiral Stone looked at a photograph of David Cole taken during his departure ceremony. He had been smiling, filled with hope for humanity's future among the stars. That hope had died in an alien courtroom, broadcast for the galaxy to see. They wanted to judge us, she said to the empty room. They wanted to decide if we were worthy of their precious galactic community. Well, now they'll learn what we're really worthy of. The beast was stirring, and when it finally awakened, the galaxy would learn that some species should never be pushed too far. The first alien world to burn was Delta Prime, home to the reptilian species that had provided the most damning testimony against David Cole. The attack came at dawn, when the twin suns cast long shadows across the crystalline spires of their capital city. Admiral Stone's flagship, the newly renamed Retribution, emerged from hyperspace with perfect precision. Around her, 17 other ships materialized in formation, their hulls black as the void between stars. The Deltan defense fleet scrambled to respond, but they were too late and too slow. "Target their orbital platforms first," Stone commanded from her bridge. The viewscreen showed the elegant defensive stations that had protected Delta Prime for 800 years. They had been built to withstand attacks from energy weapons and conventional explosives. They had not been designed to survive the new horrors that human ingenuity had created. The first salvo from the human fleet wasn't made of energy beams or missiles. Instead, it consisted of what Dr. Ryder had called biology bombs. Each projectile contained millions of microscopic machines designed to target Deltan DNA specifically. When they struck the orbital platforms, they didn't explode in the traditional sense. They simply began converting every Deltan they touched into component molecules. The screams that came over the communication channels were unlike anything the galaxy had ever heard. Deltan warriors, legendary for their courage in battle, begged for mercy as their own bodies betrayed them. Their scales fell away like autumn leaves, revealing the dissolving flesh beneath. Captain Tom Bradley, commanding the destroyer Vengeance, watched the orbital defenses collapse with grim satisfaction. "Ma'am, enemy fleet is approaching." 67. "Ships, standard formation? Let them come," Stone replied. It's time they learned what human weapons can really do. The Deltan fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams that could vaporize asteroids struck the human ships and seemed to have no effect at all. The black hulls absorbed the energy and converted it into power for their own systems. Missiles that should have cracked the human vessels. A part detonated harmlessly against shields that bent physics itself. "Return fire," Stone ordered. The human response was surgical and terrible. Each ship in the Deltan fleet was targeted with a different weapon, turning the battle into a field test for humanity's new arsenal. Some Deltan vessels simply stopped moving as harmonic frequencies disrupted their crew's nervous systems. Others began tearing themselves apart. As their own computers were infected with viruses that turned their weapons against their hulls, the Deltan flagship, a massive dreadnought called Pride of the Scale, lasted longest. Its captain, war leader Kreth, had fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy. He had never retreated, never surrendered, never shown fear in the face of any enemy. He was screaming into his communicator. When the human boarding pods breached his hull, the creatures that came through the airlocks were nightmares made real. They wore armor that seemed to drink in light, making them appear as moving shadows. Their weapons fired projectiles specifically designed to penetrate Deltan scales, each bullet carrying a cocktail of toxins that would paralyze their nervous systems while keeping them conscious. War leader Kreth tried to organize a defense, but his warriors were falling faster than he could count. The humans moved through his ship like a plague, showing no mercy, taking no prisoners. When they reached the bridge, Kreth raised his ceremonial sword in a final gesture of defiance. The human who killed him didn't even pause. Colonel Emma Walsh put 3 rounds center mass and stepped over his body to reach the ship's communication system. "This is the Terran war machine," she broadcast on all frequencies. "Delta Prime is ours. Your defense fleet is destroyed. Your orbital platforms are gone. In 1 hour, we will begin the bombardment of your planet. You have that long to broadcast your surrender to the entire galaxy." The response came in 37 minutes. The Deltan High Council, their voices broken with grief and terror, announced their unconditional surrender to humanity. They begged for mercy, for consideration, for the chance to make amends. Admiral Stone's reply was broadcast across every communication channel in known space. "You sat in that courtroom and called us aggressive. You provided testimony that led to David Cole's execution. You wanted to see human savagery. Now you have it." The bombardment of Delta Prime lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the proud civilization that had stood for 2,000 years existed only in historical records. Their cities were ash, their people were gone, and their homeworld was a radioactive wasteland that would remain uninhabitable for 1,000 years. But the humans weren't finished. The second target was the Thurian Trade Confederation, whose slug-like representatives had laughed during Cole's execution. Their homeworld of Thuria was covered in vast oceans of organic slime that served as both habitat and food source for their species. Captain Mike Foster's battle group approached Thuria differently. Instead of overwhelming force, they used precision strikes to introduce Dr. Ryder's chemical weapons into the planet's slime seas. The compound was designed to react with Thurian biology in a very specific way. It turned their protective coating into a suffocating prison. Within hours, billions of Thurians were drowning in their own secretions. Their frantic calls for help were ignored as human ships maintained orbital blockade, preventing any evacuation attempts. The few Thurian vessels that tried to break through the blockade were destroyed with ruthless efficiency. The psychological impact rippled across the galaxy faster than the news could travel. Species that had never known defeat, that had lived in peace for millennia, suddenly faced the reality of human warfare. It wasn't just about conquest or territory. It was about complete annihilation. The Mirian colonies, whose rabbit-like people had testified against humanity's emotional bonds, received a different kind of lesson. Human infiltration teams, led by the Shadow Division, began systematic assassinations of every Mirian who had spoken against Cole. They died in their beds, in their government offices, in their sacred temples. Each death was accompanied by a message, David Cole remembers. Fear spread through the galactic community like wildfire. Species that had allied with the Priman Empire began reconsidering their positions. Trade routes were abandoned as civilian ships refused to leave port. Military fleets huddled around core worlds, afraid to venture into the darkness where human ships might be waiting. The Galactic Council called emergency sessions, but their debates were pointless. How do you negotiate with a species that had been transformed into something beyond reason? How do you make peace with creatures who saw your very existence as an insult to their murdered leader? On the Bridge of Retribution, Admiral Stone reviewed reports from across human space. Recruitment was at an all-time high. Production facilities were working around the clock. Every human settlement had become a fortress. Every ship had become a weapon of war. "Ma'am," Commander Torres reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from 17 different species. They're willing to provide reparations, territory, even military service in exchange for peace." Stone looked at the tactical display showing human forces advancing on multiple fronts. "Inform them that humanity doesn't negotiate with species that supported Cole's execution. They wanted to judge us based on their fears. Now they can live with the consequences." The third wave of attacks targeted the crystal worlds of the prime and client states. These planets had been the first to welcome humanity to the galaxy, then the first to support the execution. Dr. Ryder's harmonic weapons turned their crystalline cities into resonating death traps. The beautiful formations that had taken centuries to grow shattered in minutes, taking their inhabitants with them. Each victory was broadcast back to Earth and the human colonies. The footage showed alien ships burning, alien cities falling, alien species fleeing in terror from the advancing human fleets. The people who had wept at David Cole's execution now cheered as his death was avenged. HOUSANDFOLD. But in her private quarters, Admiral Stone sometimes wondered if they had become the monsters the aliens had claimed them to be. Then she would remember Cole's final transmission, his words about showing them human nature, and the doubt would fade. The galaxy had made its choice when it decided to execute Earth's peaceful ambassador. Now it would live with the consequences of awakening humanity's fury. The Crimson Tide was just beginning, and before it was over, the galaxy would learn that some species should never be underestimated, never be cornered, and never, ever be pushed beyond their breaking point. The humans had been pushed beyond theirs, and there would be no going back. The message reached Admiral Stone while she was reviewing casualty reports from the latest human victory at the Zilliq Fortress worlds. The communication came through on the emergency diplomatic channel, its source unmistakable. Prima Central, the heart of the galactic empire that had ruled space for 10,000 years. "Admiral Stone of the Terran forces," the crystalline voice rang with authority that had never been questioned until now. "You will cease all military operations immediately and surrender your fleets. Failure to comply will result in the complete sterilization of your homeworld." The transmission included visual proof of their threat. The world killer hung in space above Earth like a malevolent moon, its surface bristling with weapons that could crack planets like eggs. The massive construct had taken the Primans 3 centuries to build, and it had never been used. Until now, the mere threat of its existence had been enough to maintain galactic peace. Captain Bradley, monitoring communications from the bridge of his ship Defiance, watched his crew's faces as the message played. Some showed fear, others anger, but most displayed the cold determination that had become humanity's defining characteristic since Cole's death. "Ma'am," Bradley reported, "we're receiving similar transmissions across all human territories. The Primans are demanding total surrender within 72 hours, or they turn Earth into a dead rock." Stone studied the tactical display showing the world killer's position. The construct was massive beyond comprehension, larger than most space stations, protected by shields that could deflect asteroid impacts. Conventional weapons would be useless against it. Fortunately, humanity had stopped using conventional weapons months ago. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," Stone ordered. "Operation Divine Fury is now active. All units proceed to designated targets immediately." "Torres, I need the Shadow Division to execute Protocol 7 within the next 60 hours, Commander Torres smiled grimly. "Already in motion, Admiral. My people have been inside that thing for 3 weeks." The Priman ultimatum had been intended to force humanity into submission, but it accomplished the opposite. Instead of retreating, human forces accelerated their campaigns across the galaxy. If Earth was going to die, they would make sure the Primans paid the ultimate price for pulling the trigger. The assault on Prima Central began with psychological warfare. Captain Bradley's engineering teams had spent months perfecting their infiltration of the Galactic Communications Network. Now they used that access to broadcast human war songs across every channel, every frequency, every communication. System in Prime in Space. The sound that emerged from billions of speakers was unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. Ancient battle hymns mixed with modern combat music, all underlaid with recordings of David Cole's final speech. The psychological impact on the crystal-based primans was devastating. Their entire civilization was built on harmonic resonance, and the human broadcasts disrupted their fundamental biological processes. Dr. Ryder, monitoring the effect from his mobile laboratory aboard the science vessel Discovery, watched with fascination as Priman citizens began collapsing in their crystal cities. "The harmonic disruption is exceeding all projections," he reported. "Their nervous systems can't filter out the chaos we're introducing. We're literally driving them insane with sound." But the real attack was still coming. Lieutenant Ryan Cross had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. A former asteroid miner, he understood explosives and deep drilling better than anyone in the fleet. His team of 12 specialists had trained for this moment since the war began. Their ship, a converted mining vessel called Last Chance, approached Prima Central from the planet's shadow. The massive world was a single crystalline formation, grown over millennia into a structure of impossible beauty and strength. Every spire, every formation, every glittering surface was connected to the underlying matrix that gave the Primans their collective consciousness. Cross and his team used mining equipment to burrow deep into the planet's core, following crystal veins that pulsed with the life force of an entire species. The charges they planted weren't traditional explosives. They were harmonic resonators, designed to turn the planet's own crystalline structure against itself. "This is for David Cole," Cross whispered as he armed the final device. Meanwhile, above Earth, Commander Torres and her Shadow Division were completing their own impossible mission. The World Killer had been infiltrated not through its defenses, but through its construction crews. Human agents, surgically altered to pass as alien workers, had been inside the massive construct for months, slowly sabotaging its critical systems. The Priman commander of the World Killer, a crystal entity known as High Resonator Zetha, was preparing to fire when his weapon system simply died. Emergency lights flickered as life support began failing. In the depths of the construct, Torres and her team were systematically destroying everything that kept the massive weapon operational. "Target the core processors," Torres ordered her squad. "If this thing can't think, it can't fire." The battle inside the World Killer was fought in corridors designed for beings made of living crystal. The human infiltrators moved like shadows, their modified equipment allowing them to survive in the construct's hostile environment. Each system they destroyed brought the massive weapon closer to complete failure. On Prima Central, the harmonic charges detonated simultaneously across the planet's crystalline core. The effect was exactly what Dr. Ryder had predicted, but more beautiful and terrible than anyone had imagined. The planet didn't explode in the traditional sense. Instead, it sang. A single, perfect note rang out across the galaxy as Prima Central's crystalline matrix shattered in harmonic resonance. The sound carried the death screams of billions of Primans, their collective consciousness fragmenting as their shared reality dissolved. Every crystal formation on the planet began to crack and collapse, creating a cascade effect that spread across the entire world. Admiral Stone watched from the bridge of retribution as the jewel of the galaxy died. The planet that had been the center of galactic civilization for 10 millennia was breaking apart like a giant wind chime in a hurricane. Each fragment that broke away carried part of the Priman collective with it, their screams mixing with the harmonic resonance to create a symphony of destruction. "Ma'am," Bradley reported from his position near the planet, "we're detecting massive casualties across all Priman territories. The harmonic cascade is affecting every crystal-based life form in their empire. Estimated death toll is already in the trillions." Above Earth, the World Killer went silent as Torres completed her mission. The massive construct that had threatened humanity's homeworld became a dark monument to Priman arrogance, its weapons forever stilled. Its crew dead or dying in the cold vacuum of space. Stone opened a communication channel to all human forces. "This is Admiral Stone to all ships. Prima Central has fallen. The World Killer is destroyed. The galaxy's ruling empire is finished, but we're not done yet. She switched to the emergency broadcast frequency that reached every corner of known space. This message is for every species that supported David Cole's execution. Prima Central is gone. The Priman Empire is shattered. Their world killer couldn't save them, and it won't save you. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Priman client states, suddenly cut off from their master's guiding influence, collapsed into chaos. Some tried to surrender to human forces, others attempted to flee to unexplored regions of space. None of them succeeded. Human fleets, freed from the threat of the world killer, began the systematic conquest of the galaxy's core systems. The ancient trade routes were seized, the major industrial worlds were occupied, and the remnants of the Galactic Council were hunted down like criminals. Dr. Ryder, analyzing the wreckage of Prima Central from a safe distance, marveled at the completeness of their victory. The harmonic cascade not only destroyed their planet, he reported, it severed the psychic connections that held their empire together. Every Priman settlement in the galaxy is now isolated, unable to communicate with their collective consciousness. But the real message wasn't about military victory or technological superiority. It was about the price of underestimating human nature. The species that had been dismissed as primitive and aggressive had just destroyed the galaxy's most advanced civilization with weapons built from scientific knowledge freely shared during peacetime. On Earth, billions of humans watched the footage of Prima Central's destruction. The planet that had hosted David Cole's execution was now a field of glittering debris, each fragment catching starlight like tears frozen in space. The people who had wept for their murdered ambassador now witnessed the ultimate vindication of his sacrifice. Admiral Stone stood in what had once been the Galactic Council chambers, now converted into the headquarters of the Terran war machine. Around her, the representatives of dozens of alien species waited in terrified silence for her judgment. "The galaxy made a choice," she announced, her words being broadcast to every surviving world. "You decided that humanity was too dangerous to live in peace among you. You executed our leader and thought that would end the threat we represented." She gestured toward the tactical display showing human forces advancing on multiple fronts. "Instead, you created something far more dangerous than we ever were before. You turned peaceful explorers into conquerors. You transformed scientists into weapons designers. You made monsters out of a species that only wanted to be your friends." The silence that followed was broken only by the distant hum of human ships taking control of yet another alien world. The galaxy that had existed in peace for millennia was dying, replaced by something new and terrible. The Priman Gambit had failed spectacularly, and in its failure, it had sealed the fate of every species that had supported humanity's persecution. The beast was fully awake now, and it would not rest until every world that had celebrated David Cole's death learned the true meaning of human fury. The rebuilt throne room had once been the heart of Priman justice, where alien judges had sentenced David Cole to death. Now Admiral Stone sat where the crystalline tribunal had once presided, watching as the last free species in the galaxy knelt before her in surrender, the war queen of the Nixari, a proud insectoid species that had controlled 12 star systems, lowered her compound eyes in defeat. "We offer our complete submission to the Terran hegemony," she clicked in her alien language, translated by human computers. "Our fleets, our worlds, our people, all are yours to command." Stone looked down at the creature that had once ruled billions. The Nexari had been among the loudest voices calling for human extermination during Cole's trial. Their warrior culture had celebrated his execution as proof that the galaxy could eliminate threats before they grew dangerous. They had been wrong. "Your submission is noted," Stone replied coldly. "Your species will be relocated to designated reservation worlds. Your military technology will be surrendered. Your children will learn human history before they learn their own." The War Queen's antennae twitched in what might have been protest, but she remained silent. Around the chamber, representatives from 43 other species waited their turn to grovel before humanity's new empress. Each one had supported Cole's execution. Each one now faced the consequences of that choice. Commander Torres approached. Stone's thrown with a datapad containing the final casualty reports. 2 years after David Cole's death, the galaxy had been completely transformed. The Primate Empire was extinct, their crystal worlds reduced to glittering debris fields. The Deltan Republic existed only in historical archives, their homeworld still radioactive from human bombardment. The Thurian Confederation had drowned in their own slime. Victims of humanity's biological weapons, dozens of other species had simply vanished, their populations scattered or eliminated entirely. The peaceful galaxy that had existed for millennia was gone, replaced by the iron rule of the Terran hegemony. Final numbers, Admiral, Torres reported quietly. Confirmed extinctions, 17 species. Subjugated populations, 31 species. Total estimated casualties, 470 billion sentient beings. Stone accepted the report without emotion. The numbers were staggering, representing the complete collapse of galactic civilization. But every death could be traced back to a single moment when alien judges had decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist. Dr. Ryder entered the chamber carrying a small device that hummed with contained energy. His xenobiology research had evolved far beyond weapons design. Now he studied the survivors, learning how to control them, how to ensure their continued obedience to human rule. The neural compliance implants are ready for mass production, he announced. We can begin installing them in the subject populations. Immediately. Full behavioral control with minimal physical discomfort? Stone nodded. Begin with the former Galactic Council members. I want them to serve as examples for the others. Captain Bradley, now promoted to Admiral of the Second Fleet, stood near the chamber's viewing port. Through the transparent aluminum window he could see human ships patrolling the space around what had once been Prima Central. The massive fleet that had conquered the galaxy now served as a constant reminder of humanity's power. Ma'am, Bradley said, we're receiving reports from the outer territories. Some species are attempting to establish hidden colonies beyond our current borders. Should we pursue? Let them run, Stone replied. Let them hide in the dark corners of space and whisper about the terrible humans who destroyed their perfect galaxy. Fear is more useful than obedience. They'll spend the rest of their existence knowing that we could find them whenever we choose. The truth was that humanity had already won everything that mattered. The major trade routes belonged to human corporations. The richest worlds were being strip-mined to fuel Earth's expansion. The survivors served human interests or they died. It was that simple, Lieutenant Cross. Now Colonel Cross, after his heroic mission at Prima Central, supervised the construction of humanity's greatest monument. On the former site of the Galactic Council building, human engineers were erecting a massive structure dedicated to David Cole. The memorial would be visible from orbit. A permanent reminder of the man whose death had changed everything, but the most important changes weren't architectural. They were psychological. Human children born after Cole's execution grew up in a galaxy where their species was supreme. They learned that aliens were either servants or enemies, never equals. They studied the history of the war not as tragedy, but as triumph. To them, the conquest of the galaxy wasn't a necessary evil, it was humanity's natural destiny. The alien children learned different lessons. In schools across thousands of worlds, young members of subjugated species recited the same daily pledge. David Cole was murdered by our ancestors. We live by human mercy. We serve human greatness. We will never forget human power. The psychological conditioning was complete and irreversible. Within a generation, the galaxy would be populated by species that genuinely believed human supremacy was the natural order of things. Stone rose from her throne and walked to the memorial wall that dominated one side of the chamber. Carved into the black stone were the names of every human who had died in the war. At the top, in letters of pure gold, was a single name, David Cole, first ambassador to the stars. Below his name was the inscription he had requested in his final transmission, "Remember us. Make them remember us." The galaxy would remember. Every alien child would learn his story. Every subjugated species would know his name. The man who had come in peace would be remembered as the catalyst for humanity's greatest war. "Admiral," Torres said softly, "there's something you should know. We've been monitoring communications from the reservation worlds. Some of the alien historians are calling this period the Great Dying. They're already writing accounts of humanity as a plague that swept across the galaxy." Stone smiled grimly. "Good, let them write their histories. Let them remember how their leaders' fear and hatred created the very monster they claim to oppose. Let them teach their children that this is what happens when you underestimate human nature." She turned back to the assembled alien representatives. "The Terran hegemony will endure for 10,000 years. Your species will serve ours until the stars burn cold. Your children will grow up knowing that humans are their natural superiors. This is the price of David Cole's blood." The aliens bowed lower, their submission complete and absolute. Outside, human ships continued their patrols, ensuring that the new order remained unchallenged. On distant worlds, human administrators implemented policies designed to prevent any resurgence of alien independence. But perhaps the most telling change was on Earth itself. In the capital city of New Geneva, a new statue stood in the central plaza. It showed David Cole as he had been in life, peaceful, hopeful, extending his hand in friendship to the stars. At the base of the statue was a plaque with his final words, but below them was a new inscription added by the Terran government. He offered them peace, they chose war. Humanity gave them what they deserved. The galaxy had executed Earth's leader thinking it would solve the problem of human expansion. Instead, they had created something far worse than anything they had feared. The peaceful explorers were gone, replaced by conquerors who ruled through fear and absolute power. The beast had awakened, and it would never sleep again. Humanity had learned that mercy was weakness, that friendship was vulnerability, that the only way to survive among the stars was to be the strongest, most ruthless species in the galaxy. David Cole's dream of peaceful coexistence had died with him in that alien courtroom. What rose from the ashes of that dream was an empire that would span the galaxy, built on the bones of the species foolish enough to murder humanity's ambassador. The galaxy had wanted to see human nature. They had seen it, and it had conquered them all. The age of human exploration was over. The age of human dominion had begun, and it would last until the end of time itself. In her private quarters that night, Admiral Stone looked out at the stars that now belonged to humanity. Somewhere among them, the last free aliens huddled in fear, knowing that discovery meant death or slavery. Their galaxy was gone, replaced by something darker and more terrible than they had ever imagined possible. But it was the galaxy they had chosen when they decided to execute David Cole. Humanity had simply given them what they deserved.